Somewhere beyond the edge of noise, there is a silence that doesn't just mute sound, it bends thought. I remember watching her once, bare feet brushing through the dry grass under a sky that didn't blink. The stars were all there, but something about them felt absent, as if they were only the memory of light, not light itself. The wind touched the back of her neck, and she turned her head slightly, as if someone, somewhere, had whispered her name from another galaxy. And I realized the space between stars isn't empty, it's waiting. Black holes begin here in this stillness, not with violence, not yet, but with absence. They hide, not because they want to, but because that's their nature. Not light, but the collapse of all light. Not a thing, but the surrender of all things. The more I learn about them, the more they resemble riddles whispered in a language the universe has half forgotten. They are not objects. They are events, ruptures in the script of space and time, like ink bleeding through the pages of a book we were never meant to finish. I try to imagine what it would feel like to approach one, not fall into it yet, just stand at its edge, the way one might approach a cathedral in ruins, or the mouth of a cave that hums with a frequency too low for ears but too ancient to ignore. I imagine the pull, not physical at first, but emotional. A sense that something once known waits on the other side of forgetting. That maybe this darkness remembers you. I've read the equations, the curvature of space-time, the event horizon's precise geometry. I've seen the simulations, spirals of matter, light stretched thin like breath in winter. But equations don't explain why I feel what I feel when I look at those voids. They don't explain why, when I see images of black holes, I see not death, but a doorway. Not an end, but a question wrapped in gravity. And maybe that's why I keep coming back to her, to the way she stood still in that wind, to the silence between her inhale and exhale. Because somewhere in that moment was the same quiet I feel when I look at the center of a galaxy. The kind of silence that feels like it's waiting for something, someone to cross over, or come home. There's a kind of gravity we never measure, because it doesn't pull on matter, but on meaning. Black holes, in their purest form, are not celestial beasts, but equations with no center. They are not things you fall into. They are places where the map ends. And still, we go on drawing. To say that black holes are born from stars is true, but it is only the beginning of the truth. When a massive star collapses, it folds in on itself until all its mass is pressed into a single point, a singularity. Not a dot in space, but a place where space itself breaks. Around it, a horizon forms, a boundary of no return, a skin between the known and the unknowable. That horizon doesn't glow, it swallows. Not just light, but time, memory, even cause and effect. And yet we see them. Not directly, but by what they devour, like seeing a predator only in the way the forest stops singing. Some scientists believe a black hole has no inside, only an outside shaped by our inability to look deeper. Others, more daring, have proposed that what lies beyond might not be an abyss, but another universe. An escape, a bridge, a beginning. I think of her walking across a salt flat at dusk, the wind pressing her dress against her frame, the whole sky bending around her as if she were the only still point in an unraveling world. I imagined for a moment that she was being pulled by something unseen, not gravity, but curiosity. That gravity itself might be another word for longing. And if so, what is a black hole, if not the universe's most concentrated form of longing? We've sent probes into deep space. We've mapped the microwave background, read the fossil light of creation, watched galaxies dance to the tune of invisible matter. And yet, we cannot see past a black hole's edge. Not because we lack technology, but because we've reached a place where physics begins to dream. To ask if black holes are doors is not to deny their danger. It is to wonder what kind of architecture the universe hides in its shadows. It is to wonder if the darkness is structured. If chaos is not the absence of pattern, but the presence of one too vast for us to recognize. Sometimes I think, if she stood at the edge of such a place, would she still turn her head slightly, as if hearing her name? Or would she step forward, knowing she was no longer a part of this world's grammar? I once dreamed I was falling, not in panic, not in fear, but with the weightless calm of a leaf drifting downward through layers of warm air. There was no ground, only descent, as if I were being welcomed, not dropped. And when I woke, I couldn't tell whether the fall had ended or simply paused. Black holes, they say, crush time into silence. From the outside, to a distant observer, you'd never cross the threshold. You'd hover at the edge, slowed by warped time, frozen like an echo in amber. But from within, should you cross that line, you'd fall and fall and fall. Not into a place, but into a truth, one the universe keeps hidden inside a whisper. General relativity tells us that inside, space-time curves infinitely, that gravity becomes a scream. But quantum mechanics resists, it whispers. No information can be truly lost. The two theories clash. One bends the fabric, the other counts the threads, and somewhere between them, we're left with a paradox. If you fall into a black hole, do you vanish or do you begin? She once stood at the edge of a frozen lake, her breath like steam against the glassy dusk. I watched her reach out and touch the ice with the back of her hand, not to test its strength, but to feel its temperature. There was something reverent in that gesture, a trust, as if the surface might remember her touch after she was gone. That's how I imagine approaching a black hole, not bracing for death, but reaching towards something ancient, something sacred. Stephen Hawking once proposed that black holes evaporate, that they leak information back into the universe, like dreams escaping through cracks in a waking mind. Others suggest they connect to white holes, mirrored opposites, where matter spews out instead of being drawn in. If so, then falling in might not be falling away. It might be falling through. What happens inside may never be visible, but perhaps, just perhaps, what's lost in light might be preserved in story. And the story might not end here, not in collapse, but in transformation, like the way a seed disappears into soil, not to die, but to become. So I wonder, if she had stepped forward that day, if her hand had passed through the ice, would the lake have shattered, or would it have opened? There's a silence so complete it feels like pressure, not emptiness, but weight, like a thought that's grown so dense it collapses in on itself. When I imagine crossing the event horizon, I don't see a fall anymore. I see unfolding, a slow turning inward, as if the universe were curling around a secret it doesn't want to forget, or perhaps one it's preparing to remember. The idea that a black hole ends in nothing is too simple, too human. In physics, endings are rarely absolute. Energy transforms, information disperses, patterns persist in ways we don't yet understand. Some scientists believe black holes are bridges, Einstein-Rosen bridges, wormholes linking distant regions of space, or even parallel universes. They may not be stable, they may not survive observation, but the idea itself whispers something deeply human, that every collapse might contain an opening. I remember her sitting in the hallway after a storm, back pressed to the cool plaster wall. She wasn't crying, she was listening, as if the thunder hadn't stopped but moved into another register, one too deep to hear. That moment returns to me when I imagine the space inside a black hole, not violent, not loud, but full of a gravity so intimate it no longer needs sound. Imagine this. Beyond the horizon, space-time doesn't end. It bends, it coils, it reconfigures itself into geometries we can't visualize. Maybe there is no singularity, no point. Maybe the center is smeared like a drop of ink diffusing in water. Maybe it's a landscape, not dead, but waiting. Some models suggest a black hole could tunnel into a white hole, expelling the consumed matter in another realm, another epoch. This is speculative, of course, but speculation is not fantasy. It's the beginning of vision. It's the mathematics of possibility. So I ask myself, if a black hole is a wound in space-time, could it also be a womb? Could it be that the universe recycles itself not just through expansion and entropy, but through thresholds that feel like endings only to those who do not cross? She once placed a candle at the bottom of a well, just to see how long it would burn. I think about that flicker sometimes, suspended in stone and shadow, a light with no one to see it, and yet it still existed, it still pushed back. What if the same is true for us? What if what falls in shines elsewhere? There are moments when I wonder if someone has already left, not in the way we leave rooms or cities or even planets, but in the way a dream fades upon waking, slowly, gracefully, with just enough trace to suggest it was real. If black holes are exits, then surely something must have used them. Not everything that vanishes is destroyed. Some things depart. We search the sky for signals, pulses, patterns, anomalies that refuse to be explained. Fast radio bursts, gamma-ray echoes. Galaxies moving with inexplicable haste. Some of these we can solve, others remain stubborn. It's tempting to think maybe they're not mistakes in our data, but messages, or worse, memories. Evidence not of beings who were destroyed, but of those who stepped through, left footprints in gravity. The physicist Nikodem Popławski proposed that every black hole might birth a new universe, that inside each collapse is an expansion, a reversal, a genesis nested within an ending. If that's true, then we live in a child universe, born not from nothing, but from the collapse of something else, a cycle of cosmoses, each seeded by the death of another. And if that's true, then it's not just matter or energy that gets passed on, but memory, the structure of physics itself, constants and laws, like echoes of a parent's breath still present in the lungs of a child. What if the laws we study today are not fundamental truths but inherited traits? She once left a note tucked inside the hollow of a tree, somewhere deep in a forest we used to walk together. I never read it, never found it, but I always knew it was there, that somewhere in the bark and lichen and shade, her handwriting had become part of the world. I think of that sometimes when I look at the strange alignments of distant quasars, at the unexplained axes of galactic spin, not because I believe they are notes, but because I believe the universe might leave messages, if not for us, then at least through us. And maybe the ones who left through the black holes, maybe they didn't vanish, maybe they moved forward into something larger, quieter, something without stars, something with other ways of seeing, and maybe they too left messages, not in symbols or signals, but in gravity itself, in the way space-time folds near ancient holes, in the way silence sometimes hums. So I ask, if we step through, would we forget everything behind us? Or would we carry the shape of memory like dust clinging to our breath? There's something sacred about a threshold, the moment before you cross, the way the air shifts, denser, thinner, as if the world is holding its breath for you. I imagine that's how it feels to stand at the edge of a black hole. Not like facing death, but like standing before a truth so large it cannot speak in language, only in gravity. We've spent centuries fearing them, calling them monsters, describing their appetite. But what if they're not predators? What if they're invitations? What if a black hole is not what swallows the universe, but what completes it? The laws of physics allow it. The theories do not forbid it. There are solutions to Einstein's equations, mathematically sound, that describe black holes as tunnels, not tombs, that what begins with collapse might end in release, a passage through the spine of space-time into another place, another state, another kind of silence. She once stood in a doorway, backlit by the morning sun, hair still wet from sleep. She looked not at me, but through me, as if seeing something just behind the horizon of my body, a possibility I hadn't noticed. Her presence wasn't an answer, it was a question, one I've been answering ever since. We live in a universe that doesn't fear paradox, where light can be both wave and particle, where time can bend, where cause can tangle with effect. So why not doors in the shape of darkness? Why not exits wrapped in silence? In the end, perhaps the black hole is not the opposite of the sun. Perhaps it is its echo, not a destroyer of light, but a place where light is reconfigured. Not absence, but compression. Not death, but transit. And if so, then every black hole might be a choice, to stay or to pass through, to remain defined by the map we know or to surrender to a geography we haven't learned to name. So I ask, not as a scientist, but as a storyteller, as a questioner, as someone who watches shadows move across her face in the soft quiet of evening, what if we've misunderstood what it means to fall? What if gravity isn't pulling us down but drawing us in? What if the black hole isn't the end of the path but the gate we were always meant to reach? What if every black hole is a way out?